When you're fishing for King George whiting in tidal areas, main thing you need is a rig that allows you to adjust the sinker as the tide increases and decreases. This is usually a paternoster, and in this case I've got a pretty simple paternoster where the drop to the sinker is a lot shorter than the drop to the hook. Now there's a lot of different baits you can use for King George whiting in tidal areas, but one of the best is fresh squid, and the fresher the better. But there's a few tricks in preparing it to get the best results. The first thing you've got to do is get yourself a good squid, and that's perfect. Southern calamari, whole squid. You could use that from anything from gummy sharks to snapper, whole, kingfish, but we're going to use this for whiting today. What we're going to do is actually remove the wings, remove the head, and basically skin the squid, cut it in half and then prepare it. I'll show you how to do it, but that is going to be just the perfect bait for King George whiting. So okay, I've removed the head. The thing you've got to do now, there's a bit of guts in here we've got to remove. We've got to remove these wings. And the best way to remove the wings on a squid is just dig your thumbs in there and then just peel it away like so. Nice and easy. Take that off, then just turn it over and do the other side. Now what you need to do is keep the wings for burley and try to get there on a slack water so you can actually burley up the area you're going to fish before the tide really starts running. Once the tide's really running, probably a little bit too late to burley because the burley's just going to be 100 metres out the back of the boat before it gets to the bottom. This particular area that we're fishing is actually fairly deep. It's actually at Port Wellspool, but it could be anywhere around the place. It's about 8 to 9 metres, so it's fairly deep. So if I start burleying here and there's a fair current running, really all I'm going to be doing is just putting the fish 200-300 metres behind the boat. So get there and anchor up at a low or high tide, slack water, put your burley in the water, get your fish behind the boat and then fish from there. Other important thing to do too is take all the skin off this hood. So there we are. There's our whiting bait. We just need to clean this up and I'll show you how to prepare it into baits. So what you need to do is just carefully open up the hood like so and just get all this guts out of the hood. Flatten it out so you've got the hood nice and flat. Most important thing you need to do before you cut it into baits is actually tenderise it. If you just use plain squid like that, it's very tough and rubbery and the whiting don't like it. So to tenderise it, just roll your hood together again, put it down there, take the back of your knife and just lightly, not too hard, you don't want to pulp it, you just want to tenderise it a little bit. Right? So you don't want to overdo it, that's probably just about enough. Then lay your squid open, split the hood down the middle, and then just cut about 1 centimetre strips all the way down. So that's basically what we're going to use for our squid bait. It's been tenderised, but not overly. The idea being is when you put it on your hook, it's not over tenderised. If you over tenderise, it'll just come off the hook too much. So what you'll do is put this on the hook, leave a little bit hanging down from here, and then you can really tenderise that last little bit. So there you are, there's all my squid baits ready to go. Just the last thing, it's pretty hot. Most of the time when you're fishing for whiting, it's during the summer, so it's going to be fairly warm. Don't leave your baits in the sun. Just chuck a bit of a wet rag over them and they're ready to go, and I'll guarantee you'll catch more fish that way. Now with the rest of it, just cut it up into burley, just as fine as you can. The trick with using burley just about on anything is not to overuse it. And as I said, get it in the water before the tide really starts getting up too quickly. The other thing too I've actually put a bit of burley in about 15-20 minutes ago, and the tide's just started to pick up now. So what I'm going to do is actually walk up the bow of the boat, throw my burley as far up tight as I can. This will be the last lot of burley I put in before I get fishing, just so it'll be just about where I'm casting my baits, the back of the boat. Now you probably thought this strip was a little bit too long. I do that on purpose. What I do, it's been pre-tenderised. I'm just going to run it through the top of the strip 3 times. All right. Now that's still pre-tenderised, but it's going to hold on the hook. This little tag end at the end of the hook, I'm really going to work on that with my thumb and forefinger, and I'm really going to then start to tenderise that up, really make it squishy. All right. And then what I'm going to do is just trim it, because it is a little bit too big. Now the idea being that the squid on your hook is still firmish but tenderised, and it'll hold on your hook, and the tag holding that's exposed is really soft and mushy, and the whiting just love that. That's a great little bait. That will catch you some fine whiting. Now he's nice, up towards 40 centimetres, good fish. He bit a couple of times too. Squid baits are good because if you're using a cockle or a mussel or a pippy, maybe 1 bite, that's all you get, gone, bait gone. With squid, 1 bite, 2 bites, maybe 3. Squid hangs on the hook really well, and that's a nice whiting. Now when the tide's really starting to rip and the fishing goes a bit quiet, it can be handy to do a bit of burleying and use a burley bomb. There's a whole heap of options that you can buy on the market. This is just a pretty standard whiting burley bomb, big lead weight on the bottom. I've put a heap of bread, pilchards, mussels and some other bits and pieces in there. I'm just going to put a bit of tuna oil in there, and it's always best to do that over the boat. Just close it up, and what that'll do with your burley bomb, that's going to put the burley down on the bottom. As I said before, we're in about 8 to 10 metres of water here. There we go, that's just down on the bottom there, and that'll put the burley down right where your fish are. If you try burleying on the top when the current's really ripping, it'll just put the fish 100 metres behind the back of the boat. So when things are hot, you can leave your rod in the rod holder. When they're not, hold the rod. Yep, got one. Oh, guess what? Salmoni. Bycatch. So whether you should use a rod rack or not, or put your rod in a rod rack or hold it, I guess it's just up to yourself. I find if they're hot, you can put them in a rod rack, but if they're not biting really well, hold the rod, you can feel it. Yep. Look at that. Lovely King George whiting, and you can see the squid bait there. And these things just go absolutely nuts for their size. We'll just get this guy under control. Whoa. I reckon they have to be one of the fittest fish, weight for weight. That's a nice little 35 centimetre whiting, and you can see that squid bait there. Just a perfect bit of bait. Tapered down the tail end and softened, and then not quite as softened on the hook set part. You probably notice I've got a bit of rope off the back of the boat here. Reason for that is just to hold the boat steady in the current. There's a lot of wind, and one thing you don't want when you're whiting fishing is to be yawing around, moving side to side 20 or 30 feet, drags the baits, makes it hard to see bites. You want to be stock standard still if you can. Quite often, if you're out in open water, you might use 2 anchors, or you might use a Y anchor off your front just to stop that movement. But whatever trick you can, in this case, it's a disused jetty, so it's fine to just whack a rope onto it, and that just stops our yaw. There's another whiting, and that guy just took in the rod holder, so you can be lucky at times. They have been a bit difficult to get biting here this morning. Lovely whiting, be great on the table. Well, everything's up now, tide, wind, the whiting is still going. That's another nice whiting. Look, and it's taken that squid bait, not a problem at all. That's probably about 35 centimetres. Not going to set the world on fire, but great on the table. It's Bill Klassen here from The Fishing Show, and if you like this instructional video and want to learn more, it's simple. Go to fishingshowtv.com.au and see a whole host of additional videos.